like we got slaughtered. And I remember thinking, and I was still working again part-time at this time, working in the restaurant, going in there in the morning and checking the comments on my phone and going, oh no, you know what? I'm not sure I can.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I can do this because I'm not thick enough skinned to be getting abuse off the back of this. I every now and again I just hear it whispered from people who've been in there, and it's like Liverpool CEO just doesn't like us. He thinks you're effectively stealing money from the football club, and they consider you to be competitors, to be rivals. And I was like, I never really thought of that. We just do our thing. It's different to what they do.
Today's conversation, I'm going to be speaking to someone who I've known for 7 or 8 years now. Someone who's been an inspiration to us, someone who's helped us along the way. Someone who's always been there when we've needed advice, despite his red persuasion. Today I'm talking to someone who built Redmen TV. Someone who was the market leader in what they do, and still is today, growing that channel to the size it is today. Today I'm in conversation with Paul Machin. Paul.
Hi.
Hello. What are your earliest football memories?
Ooh, I have this overriding memory of, and this probably won't resonate with you as much, but that I just had this belief that Liverpool played in the FA Cup final every year. You know, like, because that was how.
I mean, depend on when it was.
Well, this is the late 80s, and you know, so I was the one I remember most vividly is 89. But
yeah, of course. Yeah.
But by that point, you know, it's like it's been 86, 88, 89.
I was going to say the caveat to that is Everton did play in 4 FA Cup finals. It was Everton, I think you were thinking of.
Yeah, well, they played in 2. They definitely played in 2 of the ones that I remember, and I remember them slightly more fondly probably than you do.
Yeah,
but that was so my earliest football memories are those of Saturday afternoons where if the footy was on, I'd be with my mum and we'd be going to like Belle Vale, and you'd put your Liverpool kit on because you needed every other kid in there to know that you were a Liverpool fan. Yeah. And the flip reverse, if the footy wasn't on, we'd be in the pub with my dad and my uncle, you know, my cousin, we'd be kind of just like running around, and then every now and again they'd find a ticket for us and we'd go along. So probably like I always say it's 1990, but I think I went earlier. But the one I remember most was it was the procession for winning the league in 1990.
Oh, okay.
The red kit with the white flecks on it and stuff, and it's the one where they lift the title at Anfield. So yeah, and I remember that. But then, yeah, it's like every year that went on, there was just my memory of it broadens a little bit more.
It's it's the stuff you live in, isn't it? Sticks with you, obviously, rather than then. Who's your first football hero then?
Ian Rush.
Rush.
Yeah. So that goes back to 89, and it was a first shirt, and I think it was one of those situations where, again, my cousin, who's 3 years older, he adored John Barnes. So he was like, it was all about number 10 for him.
Yeah,
it was all get the number 10 on the back of his shirt, and then it was like, well, I don't want to get 10 because he's kind of got that. Who's the next one? 9, and of course, obviously, this predates getting names on the back of your shirt. So 9 was just synonymous with Ian Rush at that time.
Yeah, interesting. What was your first game? Can you remember it? Do you remember it like vividly? I mean,
as I say, I've got that memory of. I remember Kenny coming onto the pitch because he was obviously well done by then. He wasn't really. He was still technically player manager, but not really by 90. And I remember him coming on and it being a big deal. I remember the general feel. It's weird because those early years of being a football fan, I didn't really care about the football. No, I knew the players because you got to stick. I remember the Panini '89 sticker book, and having all but John Barnes and the Liverpool shiny, to complete that. So I knew the players. Yeah. I had the kit. You had the general sense that you were a football fan or whatever. But I never really paid attention to the events of the match. It was stupid things like I have this like distinct memory of walking down the terrace streets from behind the cop because my dad used to work. He was a social worker, and his office used to be down there. So we used to park in the car park, and then you'd walk and you just hear like that the rise and hubbub as you get to the ground. Then you walk out, and then it's there in front of you. And a lot of this would tend to be night games, and that feeling of like the hairs on the back of your neck standing up where you can just see the glow of the floodlights over the top of the stadium and stuff like that. But I remember stupid things like my dad will tell anyone that he took me to the FA Cup final in '92, and I spent more time talking to him about the revolving sponsor boards than what was happening in the match, because it was a revelation at the time. Like, you mean the Carlsberg one?
So how old were you then?
So I'd have been 9. In '92.
So,
it was like that's a Super Nintendo one there, Dad. You know, and he's like, all right, yeah, great.
Yeah.
You know,
Concentrate.
cost me a lot of money to get you there.
It is mad, isn't it, that those early memories of going on match. It is always the night games that stick in your mind, you know, going there and that wonderment of, it's here, there's this big thing that's lit up, and
it's the glow of the pitch.
And the green of the pitch. It's vivid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those vivid memories, because I know that I'd been to games, but one that, like the first real one for like a night game I can remember is we played Coventry City in the League Cup when it was like the 2-leg job, and we played them at home, and they had a horrific brown kit on. It was all brown. It looked like it sounded, do you know what I mean? It was terrible. With like a big T on, they were sponsored by Talbot, and it was just terrible. It was really bad, but that sticks in my mind, even though I knew I'd been at games. I can remember that game more than other ones because of the colours, because of the pitch. 1990, you just mentioned, and do you remember anything about the World Cup? Or was that still a little bit, because that was a tremendous World Cup?
Again, it's like, again, you remember it in like sort of ancillary things around it. So again, I'd done the Panini '89 sticker book, which I've still got somewhere. And then if people, I don't know whether you remember, but people might remember, the sticker book for World Cup '90 was this binder thing, and you actually got the parts weekly, so you didn't even have the full sticker book.
It
was the maddest thing. So you not only were you collecting the stickers, you were collecting the.
I was a little bit older for the stickers.
Yeah. Absolutely. You were more likely to be in the book than I collected at the time. So you were collecting the stickers, and then you were buying the book, and then if you missed the part, there was nowhere to put the stickers in, and then halfway through it, they switched. I think they had like a blue back to them, and then they switched to a red back. So it's mad. I remember my dad sitting me down, because he was obsessed with me being left-footed, and he obviously saw this as his ticket to like sort of stardom here. Like,
I've
got a left-footed lad here. This got everything I've ever dreamt of having. And he sat me down in front. The opening game was Argentina, as I remember. And he was like
Cameroon, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I remember whether it was the opening, or certainly one of the opening round games, because I remember it for. The Argentina keeper breaking his leg in the first game, but he said anyway, here's Diego Maradona.
Yeah,
just watch him play.
Yeah, and be like him.
Yeah, basically, like somehow thinking that, like, what's 1990? So 7-year-old me, you know, would have gone, oh, go ahead, I'll be Diego Maradona now.
Diego Machin.
As it turns out, my teenage years were probably more similar to Diego Maradona, to be honest. But
not for football.
For whatever, a wild lifestyle. And being overweight. But
left-footed though.
Yeah, absolutely. So World Cup '90. I remember it for all the bits that you remember World Cup '94 if you lived it. So it was like Roger Miller dancing in the corner flags. And so we'd be playing footy in the street, again, outside my auntie and uncle's. And my auntie would run out and go, Cameroon have just scored. And we'd go, was it Roger Miller? She'd go, yeah. And then we'd all start doing the Roger Miller dance in the street. You know what I mean? Stupid things, and like getting world in motion on him. On vinyl, you know what I mean? I'm playing all the stupid things around the World Cup, less the actual.
It was great, but that mascot was rubbish, if you remember. It's like blocky.
I see again. I think my auntie and uncle went away that summer and came back from Italy with a pin badge.
Yeah, okay.
So again, those stupid things that always stuck with me.
It was a tremendous World Cup, that almighty.
Toto Scalacci, there's all the players that you become total heroes to you, and you've probably never seen them before, and you probably never watched them play a game, because this is like a few years before Gazzetta Football becomes a thing, and before I really got into football, in a total, like an absolute lunatic, like you tend to do from this city when you're at your teens. So yeah, like all of the big names, the big stars of that tournament are all the ones that you take with you. Like, mad that I think about an Italian footballer in Scalacci that, again,
done nothing, did he? Come out a tremendous World Cup and then done nothing. And it is mad, isn't it? We often talk about this, and I talk to other people about it, and it's really difficult to explain to the kids, as in, of like how it was for World Cups, is that it wasn't, that their internet, certainly 1990, the internet wasn't even the World Wide Web, and all that wasn't even a thing. So you only saw these players like there, really? That was it? You might have heard about them. I always talk about, I'm a bit older than you, I always talk about the 82 World Cup when I was a kid. That was the first one that I can remember as a very young child bits of Mario Kempes in 78, but I think they're false memories because I've seen Kempes 1-0 so many times and all that because I was a kid. But 82, I remember it vividly, and it's still the greatest World Cup ever for me. Brazil with the greatest side ever in it, the colours, everything. People like Zico, Eder, Socrates, all of these players, but you just didn't know them, so you only ever saw them then. And even 1990 was very similar, like Roger Miller, like you're saying, it was this big.
It was big thing. It was around that time where
that was the place where a lot of people go to,
and it was around that time when wrestling was starting to come into the UK as well. So actually, larger than life characters were all in as a kids. It's all about heroes and villains, and so you've got like Rudy Voller, bad guy. You know what I mean? Like they're the
look like a bad guy though. You look like a black scouser.
Exactly. And of course, this is the point where you're too young to really get onto like it's basically borderline racism when people are talking about the Germans at the time. But Jürgen Klinsmann's a diver. He's a bad guy, and Voller's a bad guy, and then you've got Gaza, the hero, being made to cry, and all this kind of stuff. Like heroes and villains, they're the things. It's the icons that you stick with. They go down there with like the Hulk Hogan's and the Macho Mans at the time, with these stars of football, the ones that you collected the stickers of, and everyone in your class knew the names of, whether they were mad into footy or not.
It sticks out for you though, doesn't it? They're the things that you do identify because you're not looking at tactics. No one knew XG or XA. Do you know what I mean? How many progressive runs they do a game and all of this. It was just final third entries and wasn't a thing.
Well, it was the stars.
Not for kids.
The stars would perform on those platforms. So the ones that you remember is like Marco van Basten and again and I say Voller and Lothar Matthäus, Roger Miller, Gascoigne, obviously. Decent. And they are the ones that and then you've got that memory that carries on, and it adds to it. So by the time, I mean, obviously Euro '92 wasn't really as big a deal, but even with England not being at World Cup '94, I was 11 by that point, and we were ready for that. You know what I mean? Like you knew every player in every team. You were obsessed with every kit. And that just
again
got
a lot of
bigger.
It like sticker books and stuff though, wasn't it? Like you get like before it and then it explodes into that. Just very quickly, just want to go back to when you were a kid, like FA Cup finals. I mean, FA Cup final day, whether your team was in it or not, was a thing. Was such a big thing then, wasn't it? As kids, it was very often the only live game, or one of like 4 we saw all season that was on the telly. It started about 9 o'clock in the morning and it built right the way up to 3. And it was the thing of like going to FA Cup finals as a kid, because we were there, quite a bit. Record it regardless and then watch all the build up.
And that's how I actually got to know about those cup finals. My dad would record every one. So we had like under the stairs in ours was basically at the video library, and it was...
So you're going to say Harry Potter then?
So well, I basically, because of the videos, I effectively lived under there in the 90s. It was amazing. And but we had, and I think I've actually got them. They're in the office now because they're like relics almost of 86. Again, 86. I think we had 88, but we let that one drift off at some point. But at 86 and 89, like I rewatched them, and again I was 3 in 86, 6 in 89. So I don't really remember them other than in like broad shapes and feelings, kind of thing. Particularly more 89 than 86. But I feel like I really experienced them because I've watched them countless times over the years. Again, goes back to when I became a goalkeeper in the 90s. My dad would go back and go, look, watch Bruce Grobbelaar's performance in 86. You know what I mean? And look at exactly. That one. Like I'm doing a presentation in school about that save. You know what I mean? Because that was like
that was a turning point in the game.
Exactly. So such an iconic moment. So you did. You would the whole FA Cup experience. You would go back and you would spend the whole day. And for us, we'd go because the fellas would be at the game. We go round to my auntie's and it was just on. And it's funny now because football's become so huge. I actually think people have kind of turned off it. You know what I mean? It's almost like something that ruins people's lives, where it was part of our life and it enriched our life. And but yeah, like my mum's from the northeast. My auntie's from, like, funny enough, her old house is the road behind where I now live in Notty Ash. So, like, she was raised on it, Scouse through and through. My mum wasn't, but she understood the importance of what it meant to your family and what it meant to your city and what it meant to you. So the coverage would be on, and it was you all sat around and watched it. Like, my mum had gone to games, but she would never pay it. Really, no football beyond the cursory level. You read the back page of the Echo, you know roughly what's going on. You hear it via osmosis. But cup finals was like, that's what you do. That's that's your day. You build your day around the cup final.
It was amazing, and like you said, it didn't matter who was in it. It was an event every year because we didn't get as much football. We're saturated with it now. It's on every single day. If you want to watch a game, there's multiple games on days, and there is just too much. So you do, and because of social media and everything else with it, it has gone the other way. I think we get so much of it that it does impact you like too much now. Whereas in them days, it was very much.
Well, I always thought
you want to win. You want to see your team. You don't win. You just go, oh well, we're playing next week. And
that was it because you couldn't follow it any more than you did.
No.
All you could do was, and it was different for levels. Maybe a bit more as it got into the 90s, but. If you were footy mad in the 90s, you would try your best. And again, it changed the second Sky came around because you're right, there was more televised games. But even so, there was only a couple a week. You'd maybe watch the games that were on. You'd watch Match of the Day, sure. Yeah. You'd read Shoot, or you'd read Match, or you'd read 90 Minutes. And and you'd collect the stickers and you'd have the kits. But there was no more. Once the game was done, you got on with something else because there was no, you couldn't go back and watch the highlights on demand whenever you wanted to. So it was there were football times during the week. So for me, it'd be like the weekend. Me and my mate, I'd go and skip at my mates, and then like we'd get up and watch Gazetta in the morning, and we'd play Saturday League after that. So then we'd get dressed and go and get our kit on and go and play football, go play for the team, and then you come back in the afternoon and you crack on with something else,
When do you think those early experiences were shaping the way you were interpreting football, as in the media coverage and stuff, for what you wanted to go in for later on in life? Or
I think that came a little later. Okay. And looking back on it, I think in terms of like the all-round positivity of it, I was lucky that I caught the tail end of Liverpool being good, because again, as I say, that vibe of, well, Liverpool just go to cup finals and Liverpool win. That's going to come again. You've got that experience. It's like formative. It's like playing Brahms to your kid in the womb. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to come out a bit more cultured and a bit more chilled. I had that as the formative years. Yeah. But it was the mid-90s. It was the Premier League, and it was then things like Soccer AM and things like fantasy football, and stupidly the biggest one was probably like Wayne's World. That come out when I was in year 6, so I was 10 going 11, and that film came out. Effectively it's about two guys who have a television show in their mum's basement, and the adventures that come from that. Those three things, they all happened in the space really at their peak in that mid-90s era, like 90, sort of 94, 93, 94, 95, 96, around then. They were the really big things, and that coincided with, again, just knowing everything there is to know about football. I then moved to senior school. My 3 best mates were all Evertonians, and I knew every Everton player, I knew every Liverpool player. You had to, because you had to fight for your life, and you had to argue, and you had to know all this stuff inside and out. So that was the real crux of it. Like,
when did you meet your other half, Mr. Paisley?
I said my wife.
No, your wife. We can talk about
my real other half. Yeah. So we went to the same senior school together. It's funny because I talk about this, and we have this running joke where...
Was this when Chris was a blue, or was he a joke? That is a joke, by the way. He's not. He is a red. His brother's a blue, though, isn't he?
Yeah, his brother is a blue, and that's the funny thing is, just the sidebar on that, because obviously you're referring to that now infamous picture of him in the Everton shirt, which is taken in the front yard of my mum and dad's.
Oh, is it?
Because he lost the bet with his brother the year before in the derby. Yeah. Again, he's tried his best to publicise this, but one more time for the seat to the back. For
anyone who doesn't know,
being a man of his word, he lost the bet, then the loser would have to, whoever lost the derby would have to do the team's shit.
Andy Johnson derby.
It will have been, because that was, we didn't.
The fact it's got a name says how many times,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fondly remembered by Evertonians, let's leave it there.
Yeah, less so Pepe Reina. So he did. Like I'd have lost that bet and told him to swivel. Like, you know what I mean? But
fair play to him.
But he did. He got his brother's shirt and he wore it, but he refused to, like, he drew the line at being out in public. So he come round to ours. So we watched it in my mum and dad's. So I had, like, there's photos, and it's funny because there's photos of him with ciggy in hand and all that kind of stuff. And I've got one of him. There's another one of him, like, driving us, whatever. We drove. The second that full-time whistle went, he had a shirt with him, and his Liverpool shirt, and he just went, right, off, and put the shirt back on, and we got on with our day, not knowing, because why would you know that 15 years later or whatever this was going to become an internet
receipts, Paul, receipts.
Jesus wept. Yeah. It's but yes. Anyway, so we went to the same senior school from age 11, but I wasn't friends with him until probably somewhere between lower sixth and upper sixth, 16. I thought he was a little bellend before then, like, you know what I mean? And we laughed because there was 4 classes in each year, and we had like the cleverest kids were in our class. I'm just saying, all the lads who got in because they played for Liverpool schoolboys were in his class. And I managed to tread the line between, I think, like being okay academically and being quite good sportingly as well at that age, coming up from junior school. I mean, when I went to Bluecoat, and there was a lad in our year who was a year younger and was the smartest kid in the school by a mile, and that's when you go, all right, wow, that's a different
He's
world.
on a different level, yeah.
But Chris was just a little annoying kid from that annoying class full of buttes that I didn't want anything to do with. And it wasn't until we got into sixth form and we just kind of crossed paths, and it was probably like a shared love of music and birds, probably, that, you know, like we just kind of fell in together,
obviously.
And then, as it turned out, Liverpool, which was a welcome break to then all of a sudden have 2 or 3 of my best mates actually support Liverpool for a change, which was nice. Yeah.
Can be a bit easier. So what, you know, Redmen TV, how did that come about then?
So that was, I went to uni for a couple of reasons. Like, I wanted to be a director, or writer director. Wanted to.
When did you know this? This is that interesting, because obviously
it's funny because I was trying to place this. I was off at the end of the season, and I went back and I watched some of like the old Kevin Smith films, which is like Mallrats and Clerks and blah blah blah. And I remember a friend, still do, a friend called Aubrey Reynolds, who we were much closer. We were friends all the way through. He was in my class, and he was a bit of a geek like me.
He's like, he reminds me of Leonard out of The Big Bang Theory.
Exactly, that's who he looked most like as well, growing up, which we didn't know again until that show came out. But he was a bit nerdy and a bit geeky and into comics and into films and that kind of stuff. And it was probably his influence, really. You know, it was someone to talk to about, like, you know, I was into Superman, he was into Batman, and we'd have that kind of shared thing. And I think it was probably him that put me on. I think I watched Mallrats just probably post GCSEs, when you sat up and there's nothing to do and you're up till 3 a.m. because your body clock's screwed. And I watched that, and I think he then went, oh, well, his first film's called Clerks, you should watch this. And that was like the idea of, well, just he clearly just made this himself. That's a pretty cool idea. And I always used to like write little story ideas down and what have you. And then eventually, having gone through uni and just dossed that away and came back to Liverpool with my tail between my legs, and I was like, I need to do something here. I need to not be working jobs that I don't want to do. I need to put this to some sort of use. I had worked in pubs, and I'd gone through like the idea of going through being a pub manager, and I was on the verge of like doing the exam that you've got to do to be able to get your license and all this. And then I don't know, I was like in middle of the night epiphany. I was like, nah, I can't be arsed doing this. Liverpool were having a good run in the Champions League at the time. This is leading up to 2005, and I was like, I'm going back home. I'm just going to go back home, go back with mum and dad, and see if I can kickstart something. Get a loan, build me movie empire or whatever. And then I got back to Liverpool, and I'd fucked me credit rating up at the bank, so couldn't get a loan, couldn't get anything, couldn't get a job, all this kind of stuff. So and then basically over a couple of years, it would be just like, do a little bit here, do some little short, keep my eye in, just do some creative projects, do some daft little sketches. And then it kind of came to the point where it's like, I need to find something to push the button on here and really go for. And it was a bit like, there was about 3 or 4 projects that I kind of had in front of me that I liked the idea of. One of them was a now very, very rip off of like The Office, but set in a restaurant. So I wrote that script while I was working at the for Chris, actually, at the tavern on Smithdown Road in Liverpool. I wrote this script based on like
great breakfast there.
Yeah,
other breakfasts are available,
absolutely, but not as good.
No.
But I wrote this script for this series that was very fly on the wall documentary about like life working in a restaurant. And honestly, off the top of my head, I can't really remember what the other couple were, but I was making music videos for mates' bands and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then there was this idea of, what if we did fantasy football, Soccer AM, but just for Liverpool fans? What if we just went, well, because it used to annoy the life out of me, or like the TV coverage, and I always quote him, and I've never met him, and I'm sure he's a lovely fella in person, but like Robbie Savage, I got so bored of listening to him talk about Liverpool when he had no clue.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that was the time when I started to live with me now wife. We'd be going out to the pub to watch Champions League games on the midweek, and we'd be sitting around having a few pints and just gabbing about the footy and thinking, I think there's something in this. If I take a bit of that and a bit of like they're doing the little stupid sketches and kind of put it together, well, I'm basically living the elements that make Soccer AM.
Yeah.
Why don't I just professionalise it and do it? And that was the start of it. It was a long road before it actually became a thing, but that was the basic idea.
That was it. When was that?
So that was probably around 2007 was probably the first, the very first sort of thoughts about it. Now, 2008, we did a little bit of something where I did a little stupid little filming outside the club shop in town, which is god awful, and we painted the banner. And again, girlfriend then, wife now, painted the original Redmen banner that went up on the wall, and that was the very beginning of it. And then it was probably, I think it was summer 2009. We went to LFC TV and said, would you be interested in doing something with us? And then we made the pilot that summer. And then it was a year later, it went on YouTube after that.
Brilliant. I mean, I had a similar thing in, it was about, must have been 2010. It was. And I didn't know Redmen or whatever. And it was very similar. I was just, as an Evertonian, fed up that, we weren't, rightly so. But then when I look back now, they were the halcyon days where Everton are now, but Everton just weren't spoke about anyway. And it was like, other than forums and things like that, there was nothing. So I was like, exactly, it's a great stuff. Blue Kipper, all of them are brilliant stuff. But I was like, we should do something that like is basically just about Everton, a programme about Everton. But it was so difficult then, and obviously you were further on with the producing, you knew all of that stuff, but it was just so difficult to get involved in. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I saw your stuff and was like, that, to my other half, not me missus, we should do something like this for Everton. But I mean, how nervous were you when it first went out then? Were you nervous? Did you think about it, or were you just like,
no, it was just
we're doing this and because I want to do it.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
It was, so we approached LFC. We'd got really great feedback on the idea. It was all looking really positive. I remember walking away thinking, this is great. They were saying, we haven't got money as such, but we can help you out with because at the time everything was done on digital tapes, which is the biggest technological shift that changed the game. But that's for a different podcast, I think. That's the a much geekier podcast than this. But like, we can help you out with tapes, maybe get some ex-players and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, okay, cool. Got really excited, and they kind of bummed, just like sacked us off, off a few meetings and whatever. And then we made the pilot, and it was the idea of it sat there. And the biggest game changer for me was, I had shoulder surgery in like the Christmas of 2009, and I was just literally signed off work for 3 months, and I was kicking around this flat off Smithdown, a shared house, in fact, with these two mates of ours, and it was grim. We had no internet in the house, and I was just kind of sat in this. I had this little spare room, which was my office, which just had the computer in, and a TV video combi. And my day was spent walking down to the Roy Castle charity shop on Smithdown, and it was like 3 VHS for something stupid like £1, because that was like the lowest value of videos at that point. And coming back and watching videos, and this pilot was sat on
reviewed films as well. That's what you could have been doing.
But this is the thing. It was just sat on a DVD on the shelf in that room. Right. Just had like Redmen pilots written in like red marker pen on this DVD, and it was there. And I didn't know what to do with LFC. Had kind of gone. they liked it but didn't like it enough to run with it, and I'd left with a really bitter walking out of that for how that had gone quite sour quite quickly, and I was a bit annoyed by that whole thing, and I never really thought, I was like, this needs to go on telly, but what's the point? It's LFC TV or nothing really. And I remember there being a couple of other channels that were starting to have a couple of little more like public program on it. There was one called like Info TV or something rubbish like that, where you could effectively pay to be on telly, and that wasn't quite right either. And that was just one of those things where I don't know how it came up, but like YouTube was only starting to be a thing. This is like 2009 going into 2010. Most people just used YouTube then the same way they use TikTok and Instagram now, where it was just a home of stupid random videos. You didn't really think of there being YouTube channels.
No.
But then I was like I looked into it more, and I was like, well, and the idea of like a channel, I was like, oh well, I can wrap my head around that. All of a sudden, I mean, I had then 2 years of explaining to people what a YouTube channel was.
It seems mad now, doesn't it?
But that was just it. We made the pilot. I remember chopping it all up into its individual segments again, and it was horrible. Like, I mean, at the time I thought it was great, but like the guy who'd edited it originally for us, a guy called Darren Brady, and Jerome Manga, who I'd gone to school with, he was my original sort of partner on it, or production partner. They decided to put a canned laughter track on it.
Oh,
and it's the worst. It's the biggest. Like, it makes me want to die inside every single time I ever look back on that. But it was there. It was made. I liked the jokes. I believed in the concept. Yeah. So we pushed it out there. I went, go ahead, we'll see what it does. Yeah. And then that summer, we just started making a few new bits and pieces. The Summer World Cup was on. The South Africa World Cup was on. Yeah. And we just started doing some daft little bits and pieces around then. And I remember I wasn't embarrassed by it, really, until someone put it in like an Everton forum. And all of a sudden a bunch of Blues got onto it, and the comments were just filled with just like we got slaughtered. And I remember thinking, and I was still working again part-time at this time, working in the restaurant, going in there in the morning and checking the comments on my phone and going, oh no, you know what, I'm not sure I can do this, because I'm not thick enough skinned to be getting abuse off the back of this. And I was gonna basically jack it in, and I got back from work and I checked the comments again, and someone had like jumped to our defence in the comments and gone, no, shut up, these are brilliant, I really like what they're doing. And then someone else jumped in, and I was like, holy shit, people like it. I could see people were watching it. A handful of people were commenting, but someone liked it enough to actually defend us, and that was like oh wow, okay, cool. Maybe this is going to be all right as long as people are prepared to have me back on this. Maybe we can press on with it.
It's interesting because that was going to be my next thing, because obviously what we do is it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. People think it's easy. People think we've got some kind of training that allow. I mean, people have said when we've had listen, the stuff we do gets really well received. There's obviously a percentage like yourself which won't be, because people don't like people doing things, do they? Essentially, but how do you prepare yourself for that? So you're just saying, like, you put that video out and that's come back with those comments. I'll be honest, those comments do still affect me at times. Yeah, they still kind of. And what it is I don't think I've got no issue with someone going, I don't like the stuff that you do. I've got no problem with that. It's not for everyone. Absolutely, But it's the people who feel like they've got to rip you, like, oh, you're knobhead, or he's this, or he's that. And it's like, you don't know me. You actually don't know me. I could be the nicest fella in the world, but you're calling me a knobhead just because I've said this player hasn't done that or whatever. Does that body?
And I used to challenge loads of it, and I used to have quite a good sort of success rate with challenging it. The things like on Twitter, the early days of Twitter, when it was a much more pleasant place, when you could have debates and conversations and actually have a back and forth and maybe change someone's opinion on something.
We'd sit down and discuss, isn't it? If it was in a pub, and.
So I would tackle things and be like, and see if I can get people to come around, because I just quite enjoy the challenge of it, to be honest. I do that in real life. I used to love working in pubs and just like seeing if you could just talk people around on things would always be, I find that good fun. I'd just be bored standing behind a bar. So any way to have conversation with people would be great.
Absolutely,
But the hardest thing I found was, and this has only happened really in the last few years, is that we've been around that long, and it's no different to me. I'm just the same person, just a bit older, a bit more experienced, and a bit more jaded with it all, I guess. But you realise that we've done 30. We're into our 14th year on YouTube, and so if you think about that, it's not to me, because I haven't in my head, I haven't aged since I was like 21. No, I'm exactly the same person in my head that I was then now.
I'm still the same.
But there's 18-year-olds who watch us who were 4 when we started.
Yeah.
And so we've been part of that culture of, of that small subculture around football.
Right,
and you realise that without doing anything deliberately to achieve this, you've become a thing. And when you're a thing, you're not, people can get their hands around you, and they can attach a name to it. It's like, it becomes easier to dismiss, and you become almost less human, because the people who grew up with us and watched the growth know, and I get this from people who are still subscribed to us all these years later, and they've watched us go from being in the back room of my house, and so they know that we're pretty much the same people we always have been. But the people who come to us see us as a weird institution, because we've been there for that long. We were there before them. Almost. So like it's like the people who like Soccer AM. It's obviously only just been cancelled, but people coming to Soccer AM trying to tear it down. As you don't hold it in as fond esteem as you did. If you watched it in the early days. So I've struggled with that, because I think people think we're more professional than we are, and we are more professional than we were.
Yeah,
but we're not. Yeah, again, there's a dehumanizing nature of it. We're just internet personalities rather than just being fellas that you see on the street, you know what I mean? Which is, I think, is harder for some people outside of the city to wrap their head around. Because you can go to Anfield, you walk around Liverpool, you'll see me in the shops, you know what I mean? And it's, again, I use that word again, but like the humanising element of it, it's harder to be horrible to someone when you've got to look them in the white of the eyes, So that's the thing that's been harder than that. And I'd love to say I've got a solution for it. That's like, and here's my great workaround. My great workaround is just don't read the comments. And that's a bit shit, because that's how you build your community, and your community is massive. And I grin and bear it on YouTube more, but like Twitter, I haven't looked at my replies in a year. I don't click that button, because it's just opens a can of worms. That's all the good that I'll get from that is so far outweighed by the negative that it's just like it's a misery button.
No, it is. I've deleted the app. I don't even have the app. I go on it because I talk to some people on there, and I'll go on every now and again. And in general, people are quite nice to me in general. Yeah. But it was like only last night someone put a picture from America last year when we were there, and was like, they're complimentary about us, and like the first one, pair of knobheads, and it's like, you've never met me in your life. You don't know anything about me. And you're calling me, and then loads of people jump to my defence. But I don't know if it's like this for you, but you can have like 150 comments that are like, Paul's great, he's this, he's that, and then there's like 2 where he's a dickhead, and they just burn you, and it's like, it doesn't do it all the time. I must admit, sometimes I just think, whatever, you might be having something going on in your life I don't know about. I used to be like you, I used to jump back and go, hang on, mate, what about this or what? And sometimes they would turn. Sometimes they go, oh, well, I just didn't like that. And I'd be like, fine. But now I just think you're making that judgment on me and you don't know me. So what's this again?
I think, 10 years ago, the people on there, or, maybe not quite 10 years ago, but not far off, it was older people on there, to be honest. It was people more at your own age. We were for me, I was in my mid-20s and, and quite tech-savvy, and, people were jumping onto Twitter were a bit more in that kind of category, and actually really smart, educated, tech-savvy older people as well, so you could have good back and forth. Now, again, you're remembering that there's like 13-year-old kids on there who were then turning around to the mates and going, look, I got a bite off. I got a bite of this. And I understand that, because And again, when we were teenagers in the early days of the the late 90s, we jump into like internet chat rooms and try and get kicked out. So you'd be going in there and winding people up, and it was funny, and you'd sit back and laugh. But then they weren't real people; they were just text names that come up on a box. So you could never empathise with them and what they were going through. And I think there's certainly a lot of that goes on. And I've said this for years: is that if someone could just have a proper age verification on social media, I would probably spend more time on it, because if I could see that it was a 14-year-old kid giving me shit, I'd just laugh, because people go through different things in life. As if someone walked up to you in the street, you'd be able to work it out. There was a quite famous video of Ty from Arsenal Fan TV getting accosted outside of Watford years ago, and they were giving him all these arguments that you hear on Twitter, and they were all kids. They were kids. But he was giving it back, and it's like. And it was like watching Twitter in real life. I was like, what are you doing, mate? Just like you go, shut up. You've not lived yet. You know what I mean? Like, have your opinions, cool. Share your opinions by all means. But if you're trying to shout me down over something, I'm cool to know that I'm confident enough in my stance on this to know that I believe I know more, whether it's right or not. It's not always the case. And that's the thing. Is so my just solution is to stay clear of it. But you get caught. So you'll check a reply to something, and it'll be like, boss, oh cool, that's what I was looking for. I'm actually need this for a bit of work, great. And then it's one going like, you're corporate, you're a shill for a corrupt Liverpool ownership group, and you doing all this, and I just can't stand people being wrong.
No, well, it's like a free hit to me, and I hate that. You know, when people go, I remember one years ago, someone was like, I was seeing them in the church, like by Everton, like waiting for people to come up and take photos with them. I think I've been in that church once in my life. It was not at this time and all that, like 2 or 3 other. Oh yeah. It's like, I wasn't even there. What are you talking about? But you're thinking, if I respond to that
giving them, he's
got 100 followers, and I've got a lot, just from whatever reason, but it just makes the argument bigger. So it's better to just go, well, made your mind up.
I had it the other day where there was like one response, and it was someone created like a parody account of me, and my immediate reaction, I was just like, I was having a shit day anyway, and to see that, and it was ultimately, I had a quick look at it, and it was harmless, but the problem is those things start harmless. Absolutely, and then all it takes is one little thing, and then it's just it exists to at the very least laugh at you, and I can't have that. Like, you know what I mean, that's I'll beat. I'm a happy person. People think I'm a bit happy clappy at times or whatever, but I won't be fucked with. You know what I mean? And I won't be bullied. That's one thing. I went through that in life, and I can't. I'm not at 40 years old. There's fucking zero chance that I'm going to allow myself to be bullied on the internet. So. But that fact that kind of thing exists, you're getting on with your day. You've got shit that you're trying to get through. You've got your own real world stresses. You've got to, it's like I used to have this for years where I was having Butte to abuse me on the internet while I'm editing videos on my day off with a fucking leaky roof, where there's water pissing in down the walls of our house because I can't afford to fix the roof, and these people are giving me jib, and it's just a hobby at this point. But that stuff, that's they do. They catch you off guard, and you realise that's what you've become something now. You've become a figure that people can,
and they think you should be
take shots.
Just accept it because you're out there. But we'll come back to that because I've got other stuff with that. When you decide, I mean, just moving on, because you just said it, like things like your roof's leaking, and obviously got a family and everything. It's a job, whatever. Because that does me head in as well. You're trying to make money out of like fans or whatever. It's like, no, we're just doing a job. And people can pay if they want, and if they don't want to, they can not. If I can't walk into, for me, I can't walk into Goodison Park for nothing. I have to pay to go in to do. No one's forcing me to, but I want to go in. So, or I can't walk into a shop, and well, I can, but I'll probably get arrested. But I can't walk in and go, I want this T-shirt. I'll have that for nothing. Everything's got a cost. I don't have to buy it.
And look, even if there are situations, and I've had this in the past, because look, I used to have the situations where we get some T-shirts, or we get some shirts, or we get bits and pieces. And this is sometimes it was from Liverpool's retail department, or sometimes it's from brands, or beer companies, or whatever. Nothing's for free. You don't get it. No one just goes out the goodness of your heart. Yeah, here's something.
Not a chance.
You've worked for that. You've put the work in elsewhere,
and they want something for it anyway.
Exactly. And that's and again, even with someone, we always laugh. You get like sent biscuits and treats and all that kind of stuff.
Off Premier members.
Yeah, but and we've. No one's ever really done that for us, but to the point is that's you
get big super chats. No one's ever really done that.
Okay, yeah. But the point is you've put the work in, the hard yards, the long hours, the late nights, and people have vibed with what you're doing.
Yeah, and
then they feel like
connected,
it's something they want to that they want to do in return. And people have had mad things happen over the years. Where people have gone, "Oh, would you like me to do this?" And it's like. Why? I really like what you do. Oh, great. That's I'm a bit like
I know.
But that's to the point. Yeah, it's people have that notion of like, oh, you're getting this and you're getting that. It's like you get nothing for free. There's a great rule in business that I learned was like, if you're not paying for it, you're being sold, and that point is you're putting something in somewhere down the line. Everything is transactional in life.
Absolutely.
So there is no such thing as freebies.
Well, we had it with the shirt. The club had gave us a shirt to review, and then go, well, just keep it. It was a £50 shirt that we could have bought. Yeah, it's not. No one's telling me how to talk about what I want to talk about for a £50 shirt I can go and buy. And what people miss the point with is that shirt's then behind us on shows. It's advertised. So the club were getting free advertising for the whole season, whatever. But yeah, it is what it is.
Well, we had that with the shirts. I mean, it's 2013. One of the guy got promoted in Liverpool retail and saw what we did and reached out and said, like, would you like to see the kits ahead of time? And me as a huge football kit nerd, was like, oh my God, yes, of course. Yeah. And he basically, I said, literally the first, I went back through my DMs, I'd probably find the conversation, but it was like, I just said, yeah, what do you want in return? He said, well, you can do like a review video of it. I was like, great, but what do you want? And he went, look, we won't, because I won't just say it's Boss if it's not Boss. And he went, we wouldn't want you to, because that would defeat the object. Course, we want you to give a legitimate
review of it.
And that, look, I mean, that's how it works. And ultimately, you always see with like movie reviews, those press screenings tend to get more favourable reviews than the ones that follow when people are actually watching it, because there's something to being, schmoozed or winding down or feeling like special treatment, which will make you feel good about things. But at no point would anyone ever go, you can have this, but my God, you best be saying X, Y, and Z. It's one of them things, isn't it?
Absolutely. When obviously you're onto YouTube and you're building up, people are watching it, people are liking it, some aren't, some are, and all of that stuff. And YouTube is a minefield of comments that you sometimes have to. I'm like you, I don't really read them. Sometimes I will. If it's like an interview where it's not really about me, it's about the thing, I'll read them because I think they're really good value to see what people like. Anyway, you've decided then to have, because at some stage with what we're doing, we've got to pay for stuff. We've got to pay for rent and electricity and feed our family. Why shouldn't we? Makes me laugh that Ped was a taxi driver. I was in social services. I still don't earn anywhere near what I earned in social services. But I have to feed my family and for people want more, to do more, you can't do. I was finishing work and coming, you'd see me, and I'd be coming here at 5 o'clock till 10 o'clock to do stuff, and there's only so much you can do. I've got a family at home, my kids and all that, so you deserve to be recompensed. I'd done journalism as part of my degree. Well, I didn't do a journalist degree, but I'd done journalism because I really liked it, and it was part of my degree. I was like, oh, this is good, and I didn't really do anything with it. But you've got to the stage where you've got the YouTube, people are watching, it's building, and you decide we need that extra push because we need better cameras, we need people to help us. When you decided to have like a paywall, how nervous were you that people weren't gonna take it up? Was it a big moment for you?
You know what? Again, it sounds for me it's what needed to happen. There's just like, because this is not like it sounds like I say. My motivations for getting into things, and it's a really stupid thing, but go back to, I want to tell stories, I want to make films, I want to write books, I want to do these things. And I remember working in a bar on Allerton Road, and there was a guy who come in there called Paul Cooper, and he played Paul McCartney in the Bootleg Beatles.
Okay.
And so he'd had,
not to be confused with the old Ipswich goalkeeper.
yeah, okay,
bit before your time.
Before that, Craig Forrest was the first Ipswich keeper, right? Okay. He wrote this script for this TV show idea, and he was like, and I'm going into ITV to pitch it, and I'd gone through the back tail end of uni and into a couple of years of being like in the real world, and I've been sending scripts off to try and get funding and getting nothing back off them, and thinking, oh God. And here's a guy who was a guitarist and basically Paul McCartney impersonator, and a brilliant one, by the way, and he could walk into ITV and pitch, and I was like, why?
Yeah.
And it's because he's built up a reputation for himself. Yeah. He's built himself up to a level where he has the ability to open doors because people will listen to what he's saying, because he's got something behind him. And I was like, that's what I need to do. And that's what it was all about. It was never about making money. It was about building enough reputation that I could actually start to open doors to things that I really wanted to be doing. And it's mad to sit here 14 years later still doing content about Liverpool, which was never the plan. But it needed to, because that's what the next step needed to be. I was working part-time, as mentioned, that we needed a new roof. It was stupid. It was we had a baby on the way, and then the baby was born. My wife was a teacher, and she was shouldering basically the financial burden of keeping the roof over our heads. I was bringing a pittance in. It was part-time, and it was 2 part-time jobs. One of them was making Redmen. It wasn't making me any money. And we did a year on YouTube, and I was like, well, I think there's something in this. I think we can do this, but I think we can charge. I think we can make this be a real thing. And so that would have been summer 2012. I got to the end of the season, and I was like, right, we're going to build this website. We're going to do this. And this is pre-Netflix. This is like, we always joke, we got our terms and conditions from the website from lovefilm.com, which was where you get a DVD sent to you, and you watch it and you send it back. That's we copied and just changed a few little names in the terms and conditions, because nothing existed like what we were trying to do. And it kind of had to work. And Chris took a loan out, because I still had 0 credit at that point, because I'd only worked part-time jobs trying to get things off the ground. I was financially screwed. And he took the plunge on it, and we built the website, and all of a sudden that was it. I was working 100-hour weeks, including my job, trying to produce these shows with internet that was barely capable of uploading stuff at that volume, a website that no one had. It was built from scratch. Nobody had this. Again, it literally, like, streaming websites for media just didn't exist. There was no template. You can go to any web developer now in the country, and they'll build you one because they know what they're doing, because it's all there, it's all templated now. It didn't exist. So, like, we'd have an uploader, stupid little technical details, but you'd upload, and there was no way of knowing if it was uploading or how much it uploaded.
Oh my God,
And after like a week of it being like, and because the internet was so crap, it would take 12 hours for the video to upload. And so you'd wait 12 hours, and it either worked or it didn't. And so it took us like 2 weeks of this, and we were like, can you build some sort of progress bar into it so we can see whether it's actually uploading? And they were, oh yeah, cool, we'll do that. And then that was like, at least we knew it was 12 hours, but you could leave your computer on, and you knew it was, if it was likely to work at the end of that, honestly. Back to the question, it was, ultimately there was no choice for me. It was never like this is a big plunge. I did remember we got married, we were on our honeymoon, and the website was finally being built, and it was about to get launched. And I remember answering technical questions over what I wanted it to look like, sat on a beach. But we'd been at my mate's wedding 2 weeks before, a couple of weeks before ours, and I remember all my mates from uni and going like, they were like, what are you doing? I'm going, I've got this idea, it's going to be great. We've done this for a year, and we're going to charge people. I went, who the fuck's going to pay to watch you? Who's going to do? Hey, and they go, hey, Auntie, have you heard what Scouse is doing? He's doing this. He's going to charge people to listen to him talk about football. And they go, oh, you metal. And all these guys, people come over and basically laughing in my face.
So I said, well, all you can pay.
I was fucking fuming. I was fuming. I remember Charlie, my wife, pulling me to one side and being like, just shut up, don't listen to them. It'll be fine. It'll be all right.
You can't let other people. That was a quote, isn't it? If you fuel your journey on the opinions of others, you'll run out of gas and all. And I still look at that every now and again and go, stay on course. Because ours was the same. People think, you just charge for the sake of it. Well, no, we charged because we hit the wall. People wanted more. Couldn't do any more. I had 3 kids at home. a full-time job that was properly stressful, ridiculously stressful. And it was like, well, we either charge and do it, or we scale it back and stop doing it really. So it was loads of things happened in work, and I hit the wall.
Well, we
had to go for it.
It was just that thing, if that's to say, it had to be a natural step. I couldn't work in the restaurant. I was doing odd jobs. Chris had been lucky enough. I got sacked from a job. It was a long story, and it was a bit of a miserable existence for a year trying to get back into work. And Chris just basically gave me a job taking deliveries in and shoveling shite, and doing odd jobs. It was a bit at times. It was a bit of a grim job. I'd go back to doing a bit of bar work and all that kind of stuff, and a bit of waiting on. And then this was building up, and then we launched the website, and it was so soul destroying to put all them hours into these shows, and like 10 people were watching them, and then it became 10 people, became 50, became 100, and we signed a deal with YouTube to become commercial partners. The guy who was like head of football at the time, a guy called Jeff Nathanson, just spotted us and saw the future of what was going on. He was like, I like these. Brought us in well ahead of where we should have been, and got us signed up and got us monetized properly on YouTube. It's now just a process where you get to X amount of views, X amount of followers, you monetize, and the Twitch is like that as well. But at the time, it was so much less clear. He signed Man City to a YouTube deal. And then the next channel that he signed up after Man City was us, which is quite funny.
Incredible.
But we had that, so we had all of a sudden we got like a Gillette
still coming runners up to Man City then,
yeah. All of a sudden, but we were bigger than them for a while, which is hilarious. But but all of a sudden we got like a Gillette sponsorship, which used to do pre-roll, and we were making, which I think we made like 1,200 quid on YouTube revenue in a month. And it was like, holy hell! Yeah. Like at the time, I mean, now it's barely a living wage. But it was enough. We were just getting enough money coming in from the website, and while that was there, and I was earning. Bear in mind, I was earning about 100, maybe 120 quid a week.
Doing all the other
doing the job that I was doing, and I was like, I can at least replace that, and maybe that gives us a little bit of money to start to invest in what we were doing. Absolutely, so that Christmas I ended me noticing. I think I was 29. So I managed that because I remember Chris's dream was always to be retired by 30, and I saw that and I was like, right, cool. It's not retired, but I was like, cool. I like that as an idea. If I can get out of working for other people before I turn 30, that would be quite a cool thing.
Yeah, and obviously it is. Once you start the sign-up start coming in, it reaffirms it for you. Independent media, which is essentially what we do, isn't it, really? Yeah. How do you think, does it annoy you sometimes, the way it's perceived? And do you think that's changed? In terms of perceived by, not so much people who are watching, but think like journalists. Because I feel like there has been they've had to kind of accept what's going on. I
think that's exactly the
What about the football club's version of it? All of that for you? How do you see
we've
that?
always been on the outside, and I like that. To be honest, I do. Because of people, again, I get these baseless accusations thrown at me every time Liverpool have a bad run of form that, like, we're in the pocket of the club and all that kind of stuff, which couldn't be further from the truth. I find it used to be funny. It's actually offensive given how much shit I've gone through with them over the years. But they had an opportunity. This is the thing about this, is that if LFC TV had just signed us in 2009, I don't think we'd have got anywhere near as big or as far. No. I don't know what the industry would have looked like if we'd not been on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. I'd have maybe moved on from it quick. I don't know. No idea how that would have gone. But I'd have been in the pocket of the football club. I actually would have been. Yeah. And happily so as well. At that time, I just wanted to make our little fan show and put it on their channel. That's all I wanted to do. So... yeah, the relationship's always been a bit weird because, and I've managed to make good connections in various departments over the years because people think of sometimes they go, the club, as though it's this like, you've got your owner and your owner has like all this things. In reality, all football clubs are small to medium-sized businesses and they've got a bunch of people who do jobs within those businesses and they're just jobs to people. They just turn up, they perform their functions and they get off. And some people are really passionate about it and some people are not. It's just a job. But, it's the underlings, it's the guys under the guys, or behind the guys, whatever, that you come into. And over the years, I every now and again, I just hear it whispered from people who've been in there and it's like, Liverpool CEO just doesn't like us. He doesn't. He thinks you're effectively stealing money from the football club, and they consider you to be competitors, to be rivals. And I was like, I never really thought of that. We just do our thing. It's different to what they do.
They can never do what you do, though. The training's like with us.
And they've tried, and that's the thing. And it goes to your point about like that acceptance thing. We're here now, and we've become part of the tapestry. Not literally, not literally us. I mean, again, independent fan-led media. And Arsenal Fan TV and what Robbie's done have ended up being like the poster children for it in some regard. For better or for worse, it's led to more acceptance because it's just become a thing. It's just everyone knows who it is. It's kind of worked its way into football culture, and they're the most celebrated examples of it, or most hated examples of it as well, in equal measure, I'd suggest. No one can really afford to kind of mess with us in the same way anymore, because they are a big, again, they're institutions at this point. But like I used to go into early days, I remember managing to get like press access to stuff. So you go in a press box, wow, I'm in a press box, and all the journos it was like they'd all huddle up. It was like walking into like a saloon, and then the jukebox stops playing, and everyone's like playing cards, and all the cards go closer to the chest, and the pool balls stop rolling, and they all start muttering under the breath. That's what it was like. And now, again, we've crossed over now where even they respect what we do. There's guys who are like major journalists for major newspapers, and they we've got friendships there because they're now being asked to do things that we do, and now they're going, the Mirror are telling their journalists to film themselves at the game, and they're going. I remember Dave Maddox saying to me, "No," he said. I said no to them because they went, "Why?" He went, because we've got Redmen TV there, and they're taking like a 3-man crew to the games, and they're producing broadcast quality stuff, and I'm working for the Mirror, and I'm holding a mobile phone up at arm's length, and you're asking me to record. It's a shambles. So there was a weird kind of respect came in that regard. But yeah, it's been a tricky thing. Sometimes we get a little bit closer to the club, we get a bit closer to some things, and then other times it's like you've never had a good thing happen for you in the past. So you just take the little bits of moments of acceptance and the good opportunities periodically when you manage to just scrape a little bit of one out, and then live with it other times.
It is weird, isn't it? Because we often have the discussion about accreditation with the Premier League, and that's an ongoing battle. And it's not so much. I think it's not like we need the club, but you need the club. We've both grown. Lots of people grow in spite of their football clubs, not because of their football clubs. I think with accreditation, it would just give you that opportunity to go, well, we request an interview with blah, 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 and you're accredited. You can't say no. Not that you want to do it all the time, of course you wouldn't, but I think that's certainly the next step. And I know it's something we've discussed in the past, whether it happens, I don't know, because they don't like. The excuse in the Premier League is you only cover one team.
Yeah, single club media can't be accredited through Dataco, which has been a thing. Yeah, we've taught, which pre-season's always been good, but again, you can get press access in pre-season. It's much easier. There's tons of like other Liverpool websites and blogs and podcasts who get access to stuff like that in the summer. It's much more of an open field. But I still don't like it. I like to, it's great. I've been in Fenway Park's press box, quality. You know what I mean? Just to say, God, I've been there. I've looked over the stadium. I've been to, I've done it at Yankee Stadium. I've been to like Giant Stadium or whatever. I don't know the American footballs as much, but I've been to some mad stadia around the world and behind the scenes and stuff, which is dead cool. But I get much more of a kick. I'll still get me press box, and I'll just go and walk and sit in with the fans during the game, because ultimately
that's what you want to watch.
Boring, you know what I mean?
No, it is, isn't it? And you're right, it is that thing. When we've had it, it was at first, it was a bit like, these doing in here, and it's like,
well, everyone's protective of their interests, aren't they? And the old school stuff, there's a lack of understanding with it. What's happened now is you're getting younger people who are getting into positions of power. We've got a greater understanding of what the world's like.
Just that very quickly, Arsenal Fan TV, they're huge. Some of the stuff they do, we don't do. We couldn't do. I think certainly in this city, I don't
think those people exist in Liverpool.
It wouldn't work. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't work, would it? They have grown the industry and grown the name of it, but it's also hampered it, I would suggest, at times as well, because people have this opinion of that's the way it is. And I think it is changing. We obviously are on the overlap quite regularly, so we have that acceptance from like Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, Roy Keane, whoever it may be, and Sky Bet for that thing, is that they realise that it's a big thing.
I always say that a rising tide floats all boats. So Arsenal Fan TV have actually been the one right at the top, and Goldbridge as well. I don't really like how either of them have really done it. You know, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I'll enjoy it. I've watched plenty of Arsenal Fan TV outside the ground meltdowns. I've watched Goldbridge's funniest moments. Funny, you know what I mean? But there's...
Well, we just do it differently, don't we?
Yeah, and look, and I said it ultimately because I mean, me and Chris always said I've got to walk down the street, you know, and it's different when it becomes global, and that's different. You know, Man United and Arsenal have just got to add a different type of fan base in those years, a wider reach, a more global, younger fan base in that regard as well. Liverpool's only really come in the last few years, which is why I think it's gone a bit sour in the last couple of years for Liverpool, because you just got more people with less of that real connection to everything that is the football club. It becomes a results business for them, and then again you become part of that tapestry of the club for them, so you become the target for ire when that wouldn't have happened previously. But we used to do interviews outside the ground. You know, some of our best moments and our worst moments have been producing that type of content. I don't mind it. I think there's something to the natural energy of post-game stuff which I really like. You know, I like showcasing what it's like to be at the ground. Prefer the in-ground stuff a little bit more. I mean, people don't like people filming at games, but I like doing the vlog stuff. I like being able to sort of document. That's what I see myself as. I don't see myself as a vlogger or a YouTuber. I see myself as a filmmaker or a documentary maker. I'm capturing these moments that are gone. You know, you're lucky enough to be in there. There's 54,000 people at Anfield. I managed to be one of them. If you've got 2 million fans around the world, you know, there's a tiny percentage of people who ever get to feel out of that particular moment, and certainly more than once. So for me it was always about spreading the positive ethos of Liverpool, the city, and the football club. Obviously you'll have different perceptions of what Liverpool is, you know, Devil's Club and all that kind of stuff. But you're the heroes of your own story. I was always raised on these positive stories. I was raised in, during and post Hillsborough. You know, I was raised in that tragedy of Kenny Dalglish was the guy who went to all the funerals. You know, and that that you conduct yourself with a degree of class and decorum and those kind of things. You don't rub it in people's faces when it's going well, and you don't go too heavy when it's going the other way. That's a very antiquated way of looking at football now, I think, where it's all banter. The mutual respect, just as an aside, I do remember going to university in Sheffield, not knowing anyone, and going on a student night in the Union, and ended up the Bogs had this huge open area in the middle, and finished going to the toilet, and then all of a sudden it'd be a gang of 12 lads from all over the country talking about football in the middle of the toilets. You know what I mean? There's a lad from Derby, and there's a lad from Wigan, and there's a lad from London, and you just got this shared community of I like football too. Absolutely. You tell me about your football team. I'm interested to hear about your football team, whereas that doesn't exist quite in the same way anymore. So that was it for me. And people could that's why people perceive it as you're sugarcoating things when it's going wrong. It's I see the misery. There's worse things in the world. It's a pastime. It's meant to be fun. We are damned with that Bill Shankly quote of it's not a matter of life or death. It's more important. It isn't. No, it's not. People literally died going to watch a football game. It's horseshit. I think if he'd lived long enough, I suspect he probably would have been the first to go. It was just a cool thing to say. You know what I mean?
He's the master of sound bites, wasn't he?
Exactly.
And I think the thing is, it's that we do get lost in, and I think it is because of the intensity. While social media's been an incredible tool, and it has for us and for lots of other people. Just mentioned Arsenal Fan TV. Would they have been where they are without it? Absolutely not. They wouldn't have, because things pop and that's it. It's also been, I would suggest, the most damaging thing to football in that period. As well, all the good it's done. For me, it's done.
It's another example of, and we had this. I was talking to someone about this the other day. Of YouTube has taught people that behaving like a knobhead is valuable.
Yeah.
It's put a value and a celebrity on acting like a twat, and I don't like that. And look, don't get me wrong, we've done. There's an hypocrisy in all this because we've taken missteps, we've done stupid things in the past, and had to learn our lesson. And you learn the lesson that you make a mistake in the real world, you apologise, you move on with it. People forget. The internet never forgets. Things live there forever and ever. Talk about Chris wears an Everton shirt as a joke in a bet with his brother in the mid 2000s, and now every time there's a bet, he probably gets that sent to him once a week.
I done a dance for TikTok as a day with someone, just doing messing around as a piss take during lockdown, and that gets brought back up every now and again. Exactly. It's like I don't even own that video. I'd take it down if I could. I don't take it. You can't get back into it, and that's just something that was done totally out of context, and people can put whatever they want on it.
But we live in a world where everyone's their own personal brand. Go and make your money where you can. It's even bigger in the last couple of years, more and more exacerbated by that. You've got TikTok stars who've got their one trick, and then it's like, well, I've done my one trick. Shit, that was me 15 minutes of fame. What do I do? It's like you have one hit wonders in music, and then the next one is a bit very similar, but it's not. It's never as good. Law of diminishing returns. But we had that point where we were interviewing people outside the ground, and there were kids turning up, deliberately acting like knobheads, and we just didn't put them out because it was so transparent what we were doing, and I'm like, I'm not in it for this. The ones that have gone viral for us, there was a kid talking about like plastic fans being at the ground, they're like tourist fans, and just to clarify, it always gets misconstrued. It's not people who come over on all day, and it's their once in a lifetime opportunity to go see the club they love. It's the people who, like I am, when I go to New York and I go and watch the Yankees. Couldn't tell you any player. I have no passion for the baseball team whatsoever, but I've gone because it's a bucket list thing to go and take. That went viral. We went viral talking about Liverpool 77 pound ticket prices, and then James Redman going mad talking about Sadio Mane. You know what I mean? Different things, but good, fun, kind of either really good things or harmless. And the other one, of course, was the one where Chris used what is very clearly now a slur. It's become a criminalised slur off the back of it when talking about Chelsea. Biggest mistake he ever made. Most detrimental thing that's ever been done to his life, which was totally my fault for not culling it, but for choosing to put it out there. Again, the defence was it was never seen as truly as bad as that back in the day, but it still was still borderline. It was still a decision that was, I did consciously go, should I think it'll be fine, I'll go for it, and it wasn't, it wasn't fine. So you have, you make that goes out there, you make your mistakes and all that, but there are people who've seen that as a pathway to money and celebrity and success. And again, what you meant to say, fair play to anyone. We're all just people. We all have limited spell on this planet.
Exactly,
you only get so many times around the sun. But I don't have to like how people do certain things. And you now got a bunch of Mark Goldbridge clones on the internet who have got pre-scripted lines and responses and saying things and doing over-the-top reactions. And it's so transparent, and it makes me feel a bit ill watching it.
It's like the first Big Brother. First couple of Big Brothers were tremendous.
Yes.
Brian Dowling, Craig Phillips in the original, the OG.
Nasty Nick.
And all Nasty Nick, what a fella. But then by like Big Brother 6 and 7, everyone knew the script. Everyone was just in it to do this. You had the girl squatting on a bottle to get the, Kinga or whatever her name was. All of these people who were doing stuff to get that shock value so people remembered them. And the innocence is in the first couple because they just done something that they didn't know how it was going to play out.
Yeah.
Now they do. And I was talking to you both, but Zach, playing FIFA, and it's like, I feel like just snapping his controller because he's playing it with like rage, and he's doing it because he's watched for years kids playing it, but then I'm thinking that it's acceptable to rage and because someone beats you or someone leaves, and it's like you have to lose. The idea of competition is you can lose, and you have to learn how to lose as well as you learn how to win. And
that's the thing, is people don't recognise it. I can, some of it I can see through because I live it and I've been through it, and I've you make this conscious decisions sometimes on how you do things. But the kids don't see this. They don't realise it's a form of acting. You know, they're not. They see YouTubers being real, but there's a generation of it now that's so overproduced, and there's people, and again, they're turning characters on and going in front of screen and behaving in a certain way, as you say, because they know what works. It's repeating the trick. They're now looking at data and going, why did this video succeed? Well, this is the one where I smashed the controller. Okay. Sound, smash the controller.
I'm making enough. I'll just buy a new one. Smash the telly. I've seen all of this. You know,
exactly. It's like, you know, you're making it.
I mean, they've got 5 million, 10 million subscribers. So you know,
but it's like, you know, whenever someone makes a new Star Trek film, they go, what was the most popular Star Trek film? Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan. What happens in that? Oh, they blow up the Enterprise. Okay, sound cool. Well, we've got to when we do the next one. That's a thing that you've got to make sure that goes into this film, because that's, you know, like trying to find what were the keys for success. What were the key points that had that caused a spike in the data? How can we replicate those? Because they're the things that make money, and so it has become it's a lot more fakery, and I think it's damaging. But it's kind of come full circle in some ways, because I think there's a lot more knobheads doing content. Speaking as a knobhead, I recognise knobheads when I see it, but it's damaging to our industry in a different way, or damaging to our reputation of our football clubs, because you know, we are very precious about how, and particularly in Liverpool, no one wants to. Liverpool were very uncomfortable with people acting out and being a bit weird and you know, making knobs of themselves. But you get, and then it's the banter that comes with it. But weirdly, because there's a bunch of other really big accounts who are acting like knobs, there's lads who probably disliked us 5 or 6 years ago who are all of a sudden going,
thank God we've got
that. They're not that bad.
You know what? That's something why I've always battled for us not to do fan cams. Because it was like you said before, we don't have those kind of supporters. Like, our fans hate everything. Evertonians, they do. So, because we're not having a good time as it is. So my thing was, I'm not gonna do stuff that other people can like laugh at our club for.
Yeah,
so exactly. A fan comes out and is raging. I mean, it's hard enough trying to control Ped after a bleeding match. He does it for enough fans, you know what I mean? The emotions of him, his emotions are everywhere. So I was very conscious that we didn't do that. I don't like it. I'm not saying I haven't watched Arsenal sometimes in the past. I'm seeing it and being like, but it's not, like you say, it's not the way we do it. It's not the way I wanted to do it. And I know, obviously, you've moved from that. In terms of with social media, obviously, we touched on it before. You know, people pick a phone up and have made their mind up about you before without knowing you, or they might have seen one thing you've said, but it's out of context, and therefore you're a dickhead, and all of that. But it goes bigger than that, doesn't it? And obviously, we saw last week, at the time recording this, Delhi done an interview with Gary Neville on the Overlap about. I know it was a very different. There was obviously that terrible stuff going on in his personal life, horrific stuff. Stuff I seen as working in social care, that kind of stuff which damages kids. It's amazing he's actually achieved what he's achieved. And there has been a thing, and listen, we've sat and talked about him and just gone, he's just fell out of love with foot. He's not interested. It's amazing he achieved what he did with what's gone on. But he does also talk about the social media aspect of it. People digging him out over it. Obviously, the way Amazon edited that documentary, you know, Josie Mourinho, and you know, you're 20 today, 56 tomorrow, and all of that, and you're lazy and this, that, and the other. And therefore, people have picked up on it, media have picked up on it. In terms of social media, is it time? Probably a bigger question for other people, and I don't know how you could answer it, but we haven't worked in this industry and seen what we see as well, but obviously it's bigger. Do we all have a responsibility now to think before we type? You know, make assumptions about people. I'm not saying you can't say Delhi had a bad game today, or, you know, Mo Salah didn't have a very good game today.
Yeah, no,
there's a way of saying it without being so abusive.
Yeah. Because it's always, because you're right, because it's extreme reactions. It's not the, I thought you played a bit shit today.
Yeah, which can happen.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. I'm very wary of being hypercritical on stuff because I think there's a lot of stuff that you just don't know. I think it's easier without knowing the full picture to be able to say something's good because it's about how you feel about it. But when you say something's bad, you can say I didn't like it because that's a feeling. And that's come on your basis of understanding. But if you're critical beyond that, and you're trying to say why. For me, you need to be a little bit more educated in what you're talking about. So if you want to be hypercritical of a football team or of a manager, I want to know what were they trying to do and what are the reasons why it's come undone. Rather than just going, it's shit because you hate the football club, or is it because you don't care, or all these kind of things. And I think I do think when for me anyway, if you're going to put something negative out there, do you know enough about what you're talking about to be able to back that up? If I like something, I can say, I'll go, I love that film. People might not like that film. I do. And here's why I like that film. I thought it was good because this resonated with me. I thought something was bad for that same reason. I liked that. I think there needs to be more consideration to it. The Delhi stuff was really interesting because I hadn't really paid much attention. He's just for me, it was just like you hear again. Just a lot. You pick things up via osmosis. Things drip feed into your feed, so you become aware of stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons why you hate people that you don't know. Is that when things are put in front of you without you choosing to put them in front of you, you get annoyed by them. Sometimes you'll stumble upon a gem that changes your life, but more often you're like, well, I don't want this. Who's this? Who's this? Who's this? Why is he in? Why is he in my life? I don't want him in my life. But something's putting him in. So you actually, instead of blaming the algorithm, you blame the person whose face you're seeing. And Delhi was that thing of, it just looks like another knobhead kid who's gone off the rails, spoiled football, loads of money, wasting his career.
And because we're told that about them, aren't we?
Yeah.
And that's the thing about, I think, for me personally, I think we're at a time now where I think we all probably have to take a little bit of responsibility now with what we're doing. I think for everybody, because I think mental health is such a big thing now. It just is. We all, I've suffered at times, through the last job and everything else has kicked in. I know people who really struggle with it. It's a bigger thing. We probably all have had moments where it's like you're questioning things or you're struggling throughout the days and stuff. Social media is an almost awful addition for someone's mental health. And I think, you might say something. I often think like people will say something. You could tweet something today and someone's having a bad day and picks it up and sees it, like you just said, it just drops in front of them and they might just go, no, but you're a dickhead because, and it might be a little clip of a video that is you saying should never have sold Sadio Mane or whatever, and they think they should, and they're angry and then they come back with loads of abuse. You could be not having a good day anyway. And you pick it up and go, and then that really you're struggling because something's happened at home. You presume or one of your kids or
when
whatever.
You write stuff that everyone's in the same headspace in the same time frame as you. So it's like if you go out in the day looking for an argument, you'll find an argument. And you have it when you're married of like you've got to be careful of meeting each other on the right level. So if someone's had a bad day and someone's in a boss mood, more often the person who's in the bad mood is going to make the person. It's very hard. Exactly. So you do need to be careful of that. I think the best example I had on social media was I got my car broken into outside Anfield. So we were doing some filming and I got back and someone had smashed the back window and I lost my laptop bag, my laptop, pair of footy boots, footy shirt, and like my PSP, PS Vita, devastated. But the laptop was a big thing. It had like family photos and all that kind of stuff on it. It was what it was. And I put a picture out. So like, here's a picture of the bag. Here's a picture of the laptop. If it turns up in a pub or whatever, could someone just keep an eye out for it? Got in touch with Liverpool. Unfortunately, the cameras weren't pointing the right way. All that kind of stuff. And that went viral because I was big enough that it was enough of a human story that people were like, I'll help by sharing. But once it crosses over out of your bubble, what then happened was I had like Facebook mums going, and that's why you don't leave things on display in your car. And that's why, it's like, and then I became a cautionary tale that like people going like, it's your own fault. You were a victim of crime because it was your own issue, and not feeling sorry for you. You were a knobhead because you were just another one of those stupid people who decided to leave the car in a place and get it broken into instead of, we shouldn't really be. No one's car should be getting broken into, really. Should they? We should,
We're missing the bigger point here.
Yeah.
So I do think we probably do have to be, all of us, whoever it is, take responsibility. If you don't like something, let it go.
Can I just make the greatest one ever?
Move on. Yeah.
Was Neil Jones, journalist, good mate of ours, came home to, I think he found his house was on fire, and he put a tweet out about it, and someone said, any updates on this transfer as a response? And he was like, a bit busy at the moment, mate.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Just putting the kitchen fire out. I'll check with the club in a minute when Honestly, I've done that. Yeah. And again, that's headspaces for people, isn't it? Absolutely, man. Just quickly, how do you see our space developing, what we operate in? Or do you think it's gone as far as it will, or do you think it'll just get bigger?
I think what's been a really interesting development is the last few years where bigger brands have cottoned onto it, because that's what happens to every platform, is that it's a platform for the people, because a younger person's platform, they get ahead of time, and then it becomes big.
The curve catches up.
Brands see value in it, and then they start to flood it with dough. It's Bayern Munich syndrome, basically. Right. Is that you can get it, you can go in the Bundesliga and you can do coaching and smart tactics and being ahead of the curve, having new fresh ideas. You can go and win the Bundesliga, but Bayern Munich will just go, what did they do? Right, let's go and buy what they've got. And they'll either buy your best players, they'll buy your coaches, or they'll just buy someone who can copy all your techniques but put more spend behind it, and they will go back to the top eventually. And that's what's happening now. You mentioned the overlap. All of a sudden now, Gary Neville he's got a huge financial clout. He can afford all the best cameras. He can afford the boss studio. He can afford to pay all these voices to come in and amplify it for him. Plus, he's got his own backing as well, and he's got a big sponsor behind him. The money's now going towards there, and that's going to be a really interesting thing to see how that develops, because more people will be trying to copy, and we're seeing it already. I've been on 2 or 3 different shows that are sponsored by bookies that are trying to have their own thing, and some of them are actually quite good shows. I've actually quite enjoyed being on them. Effectively, they took our social club idea, which we did 8 years ago, whatever,
never been stopped, but
and now brands and big businesses are doing their own version of that. So we were ahead of the curve, but that's what we need to fight against now. And I think it's going to be smaller people are going to have to be bigger and more controversial to get more eyes on what they do. I think people who got in the door at a certain time will continue to be okay, reasonable institutions. So our mission is to make it. Do we want Redmen and Arsenal Fan TV and Toffee TV and West Ham Fan TV and United Stand to be institutions that go on beyond us? And can we make that transition? And then it's how much of the pie do the big brands and the corporations eat up, and then it's how do the little people who are just starting out, is that pathway still there for them?
We need to definitely do something social clubby wise, or certainly us together. What are you, just very quickly, we've come towards the end anyway, but long-term goals for Redmen? Or are you not really thinking about that? Are we just season by season at the moment for you?
We've been flying by the seat of our pants. So it's a bigger story for another day. But we'd sold the company for a while and then bought it back a couple of years ago. And Liverpool became really good again, which was great. But we were flying by the seat of our pants of just like everything was going great because Liverpool were going great, and last year was a real struggle for us. So for me, the short term goal is making sure that it's a business that stays afloat,
viable business
that can exist whether Liverpool are the best team in Europe or the worst team in Europe. That's the short term to medium term goal. We can't have people's livelihoods because we're now in a position where we've got any given day 10 to 12 people who work full time for us. We're a small business in a city. We're providing work for people who've got bills and kids and lives and careers themselves. We have to make sure that we are still providing, making the content, doing the services, making stuff that I like and people still enjoy. We're servicing the people who've been with us all these years. We're looking after the people who are in the building, whose livelihood it is. And then, as I mentioned, for me, it's then, can Redmen TV exist without me as the face of it? Can it exist without Chris Pajak as the face of it? I don't know the answer to that question, and that's going to be really interesting to find out because, I still enjoy it. but it's not the passion that it once was, because it's a long time. It was never meant to be the be all and end all.
Oh, okay.
Can we keep that running? You know, the joke we always make is, because of a joke, who can beat Hulk Hogan? And who can be, so you get to that status where you turn up for WrestleMania, and you turn up for SummerSlam, and you turn up for Survivor Series and the Royal Rumble, and and you have your big moments. You turn up for the best part. I've done my hard yards. I've done the 100-hour weeks sitting in my pajamas, ingesting footage into a crap computer, looking at my own face and listening to my own voice for hours on end, day upon day. Can we move on? Can we move on to bigger things? Can we get other things up and running around the side of it? That's the personal challenge. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see, is like in a decade, is our Arsenal Fan TV and Redmen and stuff, are they still part of the culture of football, or were they a fad that kind of had its day and went pop? And then are we going to be a Netflix documentary about how it all went wrong? I
don't think so, because I think your fans are growing older with you, and I think that's why they stay with it. And as long as you don't move the needle too far, I think you would always have that fan base anyway. Liverpool always going to be big enough to have that. What's your proudest moment?
I think there was
obviously your family is your proudest moment.
But no, there's a couple of random ones. So there was one where we were doing the coverage on the red carpet of Liverpool's end of year player awards. And what I was like, Genie Van Alden had stopped. I don't know whether this before or after I'd done some work with him for Pro Evo. But he was stopped and we were just doing an interview, and Jurgen Klopp walked past and then double took and came back and went, "I watch you," and I was like, I literally nearly combusted, at the notion of that. And that was like, holy shit, the manager of Liverpool knows who I am and watches what I do. And we've had a couple of interactions over the years, like just like at a managers awards years later, with the William Hill got me into, and he just come over and had a bevy with me and my wife and just had a chat and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like your mates, which is mad. But the stupid ones are, my wife's dad is a very, very old conservative, lives in a little village in Leicestershire, very narrow-minded, doesn't like football. Doesn't, you know what I mean? Doesn't like any doesn't like the left, doesn't like any socialist ideals in his life. Had no time for me whatsoever. And his wife is, who was my wife's stepmother. We were legitimised for her when someone in her spin class knew who I was. So that was us in her eyes done. You were sorted, yeah. And then I got invited on Radio 4 to do a talk. There was this thing, it comes up every now and again, about how much YouTubers earn. So there was like an article that got leaked about this is how much, and I got asked to come on and talk about it. It was like the Money Matters show in mid-afternoon on Radio 4. And it turned out I'd forgotten this at the time, that he just has Radio 4 on constantly in the kitchen in his house. Oh, okay. So he was like, he's mowing the lawn, he'll have it in his ears. Yeah. And I think he was doing the gardening, and all of a sudden I came on the radio.
Tremendous.
And in pure Tory way, I got asked at the end, I remember my dad was listening to it and he said it was quite funny. I never really thought about it this way, but they said they were pressing me, so are these numbers accurate? Can you tell us how much you actually earn? And I just said, oh, look, I'm actually legally not allowed to. Contractually, I'm not allowed to tell you how much I earn. And he went, my dad said, it come across like, yeah, you do really well, but you don't want to brag about it, which is barely the truth. But for my very conservative father-in-law, was like, that was like his mum was on Radio 4, basically sounding like a really important business person. That was like, it absolutely made us. That was a weirdly proud moment where my life was a lot smoother after that.
Absolutely tremendous. Right, we've got a tradition. Well, we haven't, but I'm making it a tradition now. We've got to finish with a couple of things. First of all, is 5 things you can't do without in your life. So go on.
Comic books.
Okay.
Yeah, I am obsessed. I've got like a Marvel Unlimited membership. Is the best thing I pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't sleep without reading comics.
Number 2.
Some form of games console.
Yeah.
It's always been the latest one, or whatever the Sony console is. Right now, it's the Steam Deck, which basically the biggest portable handheld PC thing. It's barely handheld, but it's amazing. I absolutely adore it. That's a big part. I couldn't do without my phone, but not as a phone, as a production tool,
Right, yeah.
because my personal channel is run entirely off my mobile.
Just off your phone.
Every vlog, every video that ever goes on there is filmed and edited on my phone. And so like that, I love the fact, and this again goes back to me being a production nerd. I used to have to borrow cameras and do this and then put it into PCs and edit it, and then took years to export and years to upload. I can turn stuff around when I'm sat on the couch now, which I absolutely adore.
Okay, and what for?
Family.
I was going to say, I was wondering when the family...
No particular order, by the way.
No, there's no chronological order here.
Yeah, you know, it's been, and I think my wife above and beyond is that, you know, we've been together since 2007, so we've been together a decent chunk of time. You know, she was 20, I think, when we met. She was just finishing university. I'm 3 years older than her, so I was back in Liverpool and dossing around. You know, we've grown up together. We had hard times together, and you know what? You know, there's a lot of marriages. I think people are conditioned. I think marriage is meant to be crap, and we were going down that route, and then we realised, actually, no, let's have a chat about this. Turned out we actually like each other more than we probably thought we did. Very hard raising kids, but we've come round, and I love being married. I love me. You know, she that I could do. I could not live the life. To have that support network around me. Yeah, it was huge. And
your fifth one.
Liverpool Football Club.
I was going to say they'd have to be in this.
Yeah, they do. You know, and this is the thing. You know, what's the difference between me and yous? I'm lucky that I just happened to support a football club that's just a bit bigger and has more success. You know what I mean? There's no difference. I'd be doing the same thing, but you know, we get big. Ultimately, you know, we get more eyes on it because Liverpool are a bigger thing. If I'd been born anywhere else, you know, like my mum's from the northeast, if we just relocated there, I might have been a Bishop Auckland fan or a Darlington fan or you know, whatever, and it would have been nothing. You know what I mean? I'd have had to do something else. So Liverpool's opened more doors for me than I ever could have dreamed of. I've been to, you know, across the world, shook hands with all kinds of people along the way. It's that's probably about right.
It's tremendous. And then these are quick fire 5 ones. Ned wanted me. Ned's gone for, he wanted 10, but we only come up with 5 today. We'll get there. Beer or spirits?
Beer.
PlayStation or Xbox? Or
PlayStation.
KFC or McDonald's?
I probably eat more Mathews, but I probably like KF more.
Okay. Salah or Mane?
Salah.
PES or FIFA?
PES.
I knew that one. I knew that one. It was an easy one for me to
I still want them to hire me for major events.
I just want them to make Master League.
Yeah.
I think absolutely. I did want to talk more about your family, but we'll leave it there. You've just done it was a lovely little bit that we should have really carried on with that, but you know, we'll leave it. Needless to say, you're very happy, very grateful to your family, and particularly to your missus, who obviously
they change your perspective.
Has been a big part.
But they change your perspective on everything. It's hard work. I mean, I've got 7 and 11 now, my kids, and I'm coming out of the incredibly difficult, intense periods, and about to enter into.
How old are you?
40.
40. Okay. So do I. You know, I thought I was done with 2, and then there was a lovely surprise.
We'll see. But yeah, they do. They're brilliant, and I love that. Like I live vicariously. I like to introduce them to things that I liked and see how they react to them and all that kind of stuff. And you get to relive a bit of your childhood through them, and then they get to just show you mad stuff that you never, you know, the stuff that my son can just pick a guitar up now, hear a tune and pick it out, and I'm like,
unbelievable.
That's mad that he, you know, like I made someone who can do that. I can't do that. You know what I mean? My daughter's like boss into gymnastics and stuff, like, you know, and she's just got a super intense focus that I, you know, drive and determination that I didn't find until my 20s, and she's me. She was born the person that I had. It took me 22 years to craft, you know, which I think is boss.
No, it's incredible. It's incredible, isn't it? But listen, thank you very much for taking the time. It's been lovely because we see each other a lot of times. We never really have the time to sit down and have a chat about stuff. I've learned so much today, obviously, because of you and Chris. We were inspired to do this, and I've grown because of you and Chris, and you've been here. You've always been there for us for advice and everything else, and always help. So thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time. It's been lovely.
Absolutely.
It's been lovely. Cheers. Big thanks to Paul today for coming in and having a chat. But just make sure you check out all of Paul's social stuff on Redmen, his personal Twitter. We'll have all of them in the link and the description. Make sure you subscribe and like the channel and the video. And if you want to listen to more Inside the Game podcast, we've got some cracking ones on there. Make sure you check them out too. Thanks for watching. See you later.